Welcome to the Developing Life Podcast. Welcome to episode 19 of the Developing Life Podcast. As the digital and design evolution continues to expand, the roles and impacts of creatives are being redefined at an alarming rate, sparking a crisis of meaning amidst the declining relevance of our current systems. In this new era where traditional boundaries are increasingly blurred, how can we regain our clarity and reclaim our purpose? Today, we are joined by design chef, educator, and transformative force for good, Jose Caballer. Jose began his journey at the Art Center College of Design and moved swiftly into the digital realm, leading innovative projects at the Razorfish during the dot-com era before founding his ventures like the group in 2001, which quickly climbed into the ranks of Inc. 500's fastest-growing companies. In 2012, Jose founded The School, an educational platform that later evolved into the Futur with Christo, focusing on the business of design to empower creatives around the world. Jose's career is marked by a continuous exploration of how design can reshape ordinary elements into extraordinary outcomes. And through his work, Jose is dedicated to elevating the creative process, bridging diverse fields, and creating opportunities in the evolving digital landscape of our everyday lives. Joined by our host, Heather Crank, Jose will share insights on navigating the current transitions of the creative industry, from the integration of AI to the shifts in ownership and reality perceptions, uncovering paths for creatives to purposely move forward without limits.
Thank you so much, True. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, Jose. It's so nice to have you here, and you're bringing the chaos. I'm ready to dig in. Would you please take a moment and just introduce yourself? I know True just kind of covered it in a nutshell, but you just kind of let people know who you are.
I'm Jose. Abraham is my middle name. Caballer is my last name. Perez, if you're Latino, you have to use all of your names. Acosta is the next one. So Jose Abraham Caballer Perez Acosta. It's my full lineage. My great-grandfather actually was a Black man and a landowner in the Dominican Republic. My grandfather on my father's side was an accountant and a man about town. And the reason I'm telling that story, or I'm putting that into my heritage, is that the mix of being half Dominican and half Puerto Rican has a lot of implications in the whole story. But I became a graphic designer. My father was a Seventh-day Adventist pastor when I was born, and my mother was a biologist. I ended up becoming a designer. So now, if you see what I do for a living, which is mixing, the creation of systems and ideas for us as creative people, philosophy, so to speak, and experimenting with a lot of it, because user experience is the foundation of me, who I am as a designer. It makes sense because of my heritage, my parents, etc. So all those accolades and like those things aside, my continuous drive has been, how do we push ourselves further to having bigger roles in culture and society? That drive is like, it's everything I do is for that. How do we elevate ourselves as designers to take a bigger role in society?
Ooh, I love that. And it's so complex and interesting because I imagine having to do that, you're having to hold very different feelings at the same time and still maintain your balance and move through the world. I would love to hear your thoughts about how do you hold complex feelings that are contradictory to each other?
That's a good question right off the bat. All right, let's get deep.
Let's go.
Bring it on. Chaos. A healer friend and person in a setting of community building had this thing wherever I would come forward, or anybody would come forward with a certain statement and like this absolutism, she would always say, or not. Even after she said something, she would say, or not. So there was always this like this or that, yin yang, the two sides of a, what are the sound? What is the sound of one hand clapping, right? It's like there's two sides always to it. I like that in India there's this like, you don't know whether it's yes or no. It's kind of like, you know, the Indian nod is pretty much or not. So for me, what I've learned now, and that it's for me personally, that if you think about it from design is a very like technical and like righteous kind of thing. It's almost like engineering, right? You have to do it this way. The reality is that that's not true, right? There's many ways to do it. And that's the same way of life, right? The reality is that you can live in many ways. And it's really what makes it works for you, right? Every system is really about what works for yourself and for your inner child. So learning to create personal a personal philosophy for you to live by and how you respond to the world instead of the industrialized version, which is you have to fall into these set of labels or whatever, is true self-expression, right? Is what we're looking for in mastery, is what it says on my LinkedIn, you know, creatives to step into their full power. And that's really about self-knowledge and about individuating yourself to where you are now separating from the rest, but connecting to each other by knowing who you are, right? So it's like a hat trick. And here, I'll tell you a deep secret, like ahead of it. When I left the school to travel and to learn, it was really for myself. It was for me to heal, for me to learn these things. But the conspiracy is that, you know, I left Chris the community, or that's how we divided it, and I took core. He said it was like because that's what was making money. No, I wanted to experiment with core beyond brands, beyond doing it for corporate, because core in itself, you know, there's much better brand strategy frameworks. You know, Anna Lee is a good example of that. But core is really not a brand strategy framework. It never was. It's actually a world building engine. It's just the three most fundamental things, which is who you are, attributes, who the people around you are, your co-creators, and the goals that you have together. It's about harmony, right? It's about creating harmony and being able to like align that. So when I started experimenting throughout my whole journey, I was using it on myself to produce this fabulousness, right? So that's really the secret. So that this could happen, co-creation is possible on my Instagram. I've been building Burning Man camps for 9 years. What the fuck do you think we're doing out there? Right?
Wow.
I'm now doing it out here, and people are like, what's going on?
So I just want to back up for a second. For those people who don't know what the school is, that's something you started with Christo, and then eventually it became the Futur. And this was after your career at Razorfish, right?
Yes.
After
5 years at Razorfish, 10 years running my own agency, I said, screw it. I don't want to be in the service world. I'm going to start my own startup.
So how did you meet Chris before the school? Like, how did that even happen?
First of all, we went to Arts Center College of Design together in Pasadena, and we were both lab asses, lab assistants. That's what they were called, lab ass. And so we saw each other, you know, when we were changing shifts. So we knew of each other, and he was pretty prolific already in school. He was already doing professional work. He got me my first job. Like I graduated on Saturday. And yes, I was super obnoxious. I was actually the graduation speaker. And my talk was me arguing with me on a monitor, like this live performance about whether the future was going to be digital or analog.
And
well, I don't know. I think it's still analog. So he got me a job working at a motion graphics place, like right after, called Novacom, I think, right after, like Sunday, I started working there. I graduated Saturday. Sunday, I was at a job, freelancing, right? And oh my God, did I hate that job. They had a lot of ice cream and a lot of, but I didn't want to be making like, you know, boards for like Sunday night football, like at a, whatever, dude, that's not my jam. So I immediately like left and went to New York. And that's how I got to work at Razorfish.
Wow. Okay. So you worked at Razorfish and then you left and you went to, so can you one more time break down the trajectory?
So I went to New York. I
Yes.
ended up running into Thomas Mueller at a party at the Cooper Hewitt.
Right.
I knew I wanted to work there, and I knew I was going to end up working there no matter what. But
Mm-hmm.
they hired some other guys from my class at Art Center, and that's fine. I waited patiently, and Thomas asked me if I wanted to come work there, and I'm like, sure, no problem. At the party, and then whatever. I did a few more interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I quit right away. I quit like after 8 months. Like I have a tenuous like it's my astrology. I have in all my relationships, work or otherwise. I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out. I don't know. Am I going to commit to this? So then I stayed there. I ended up staying for 5 years. Very transformational, my experience there. That's another story for another time. But I always focused on culture and like making the work environment better and funner and more connected, no matter what. That was always my jam. So when the dot-com boom ended in 2001, they recalled me back to LA. Like I had moved to LA because they moved me there.
Oh,
here.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And so I was going back and forth between LA and New York. I decided to stay in LA because I knew I wanted to start my own thing. I didn't know yet what. And I did. So I stayed here. They gave me a severance package. And I spent 3 months in my PJs, figuring out a business plan or a business model. During that research, like I wanted to do a collective for the group, but it was too early. It was inspired by a Free Agent Nation, which was by Daniel Pink. But the books that really influenced me, Free Agent Nation, Daniel Pink, A Whole New Mind, Why Right Brainers Will Own the Future. I was like, wait a minute, if we're going to own the future, what does that mean? And he also was inclusive. He said healers, feelers, big picture thinkers will inherit the future. Ooh. So there's a big role there for the feminine, and there's a big role there for the crazy people, right? So that book actually is what influenced the school. I said, somebody's got to teach him the business of this shit because otherwise, how are we going to do it? Right. And honestly, when I did it for 3 years and I'm really loud, really obnoxious, I did a show for 2 years straight. Chris saw it because I mentioned him and I added him. I was just basically doing my thing. And he asked me out for lunch and he's like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like literally, he's like, what the F are you doing? Seriously. And I explained it to him. I said, look, I read this book, 4-Hour Work Week, and it talks about building your own personal brand. And like, I'm the crazy kid that's like, hey, look, this is what's happening. If I did a cartoon of me, it would be like I walk into whatever situation, but they're like, oh, hey, by the way, here's what's happening. What's really happening. Very funny. He's like, okay, he's a Capricorn. He's very doubtful. So I've said, but let me just hang out. Let's hang out. And I became the resident entrepreneur at Blind. And I saw him every day. I'm going out to build Burning Man camps. He's figuring out what his agency's doing. And I'm like, hey, let's do a show. And he's setting up at the same time. He's setting up the studio. Like it's basically an improv show with two creative people, like two creative dads going like, okay, what's next? We're not talking that much. We're just doing whatever's next. So he made the set. He would ask me questions. What do we need next? It's like basically like building a Burning Man camp. And that first episode of the School Live was we said, what are we going to talk about? What's happening right now? And that's the first episode. It's literally what was happening right now. And as that evolved, it became clear that it was going to be challenging to build it together. He had his point of view, and it wasn't really the conflicts were less conflicty than not. It was more like, oh, this is the vision that you have. My vision was to build a software platform, like what Teachable is. That was my vision. I'm like, that's where the money is in being a middleman. But he's a content guy. So he's like, wait, what are you talking about? Let's create content and YouTube channel. And, that's really where so there's no truth in either or. It's part of the same, what's the sound of one hand clapping? So I said, okay. And we divided it up. And I took the Bible and he kept the church. And I knew that he would be a way better stern Asian dad to the community and give them the discipline and teach them the business of design. And I went to explore all the woo in the world. And I'm like, okay, what really makes somebody successful? And here I am. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no answers, but go ahead. Next question.
Oh, okay. Well, So he talks a lot about your relationship, Chris does, and how you really encouraged him to step out in front of people. He's super introverted. He's like me. Um, and he credits you with a lot of his success, which I think is really beautiful. And I know you guys have a very nice relationship. Um, so what instinct in you drove you to encourage Chris to do that, to go public? Or was it his idea the whole time and you just encouraged him to get in front of the camera?
He wanted to do online education, right? And I had just met with Linda Weinman and toured all of lynda.com. And she had given me some interesting insights. You know, that one of the most successful courses were the courses where the teachers were already famous.
Oh, interesting.
So that it was very difficult to get a course for someone who wasn't doing their own lifting on their personal reach, like writing a book or doing this. So I'm like, interesting. So if Kristen wanted to start, you know, an online school, or we wanted to do that, we both needed to like be well known enough. And I wasn't writing a book; he did a book pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The man's a machine. Like if anybody thinks about competing with Chris, just don't do it. Like the dude is just like bah, 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 to where to me it's kind of painful. I'm like, whoa, slow the fuck down. What's going on? But then I'm crazy too, and I do it my own way, right? So we all develop our own styles. But the question you're asking is like, what did I see?
Yes.
Look, I see it in you. I said it actually in a very inappropriate comment on Threads. It's like, you know, my crush on Heather Crank is that she's fucking like amazing, like right, like just a little bit that I see it in everyone. That's what I see. And by the way, Chris sees it too. He sees the real you, and that's an art, right? Being able to see it. So when he said producing our content, oh, you're the spiritual guy. Like, first of all, I was offended by that because I didn't want to accept it. You're the guy who goes to Burning Man, does yoga. And I'm like, screw you, buddy. But he saw it. So then me being a Taurus, okay, I got to go prove this. Is that true? And the reality is that there's the aesthetics of the spiritual guy with a man bun that lives in Mexico. But then there's the reality of, are you really living, you know, what you preach or what you practice? It's all about practice. It's not about the aesthetics. So I wanted it to make sure that it was congruent on the content, that I was actually that person. So so this other secret is that this 6-7 year journey has been to Chris as a director, like, well, okay, let me go become that character, because he believed in like playing the role, fake it till you make it. And I said, no, I can't do it unless I'm really that, which is stupid because it's neither one or the other, right? It's one half of the, you know, whatever. It's like the Indian knot. Are you the person or are you playing the person? Who knows?
True. That's a really good place to.
And you're doing it. So you're doing it. This is it. This is what you're doing right now. You just get on and you do it, right?
Yeah.
Everything else will come from that.
True.
Introvert, extrovert.
Oh, well, I have thoughts about that, but let's move on. So speaking of interacting on Threads, we kind of stumbled across each other. I saw you with Anna Lee, and we connected. We did a Instagram Live. And you spoke about human design a lot, and I know that's something you've been really passionate about. And I'm going to quote you here, so get ready. You were talking about the crisis of meaning in design, and you said, quote, "To make a living, we lend our talent, skills, and time to companies and brands, some nonprofits. Most are driven by growth and expansion. Some have good cultures, some don't. Over time, we lose our own sense of wonder, curiosity, and meaning. That thing, the spark that makes us become creatives, and we fall into a crisis of meaning." I would love to hear how you personally are navigating that in your career.
Look, Linda, we are all powerful creators here. Milka, Annalie, you, Bjorn, every single person on this call, at whatever age, true. And for me, it's been about a continuous reinvention. And I'm just basically modeling Madonna, where she just reinvented herself every 10 years. And then what I discovered like early on was that, oh, the coming era, we're not just a designer. There's a political aspect of I didn't want to be a risk, right? I wanted to be more a leader as a creative. Then there's that, oh, let's get on YouTube. And now you're actually a personality, right? So now you're talent, but also you have to produce content. And like, there's now you're playing this big, huge spectrum of roles. It's really pushing and expanding our reality of who we think we are or meant to be. So then we really struggle with coming out as our full self. We struggle being authentic. We struggle being connected to our little person all the time in that. And I'm like, oh, so we need a new type of like producer, director type person for this new era, right? So I, in the nature of the evolution of this whole thing, have become that. I'm a coming out advisor. Like, you know, what is your exact, you know, philosophy? What is your core? What is, you know, what's your co-creators look like, you know? And this reinvention that's happening as we speak is actually not a reinvention. It's me actually coming out authentically by saying, reflecting, what have I been doing? Let me see. I showed up to Christo's office and I helped him get on stage and come out. Okay, great. He was an introvert. Now he's huge. I knew that would happen. I knew he was going to be huge. And I knew he would spread core all over the world. So now wherever I show up, you know, Mexico, whatever the heck I show up, people are negotiating with those templates. You know, that were really, people are using the group, therefore Razorfishes. The group was the child of Razorfish. The school was a child of the group. Chris didn't know what I meant, you know, didn't use the same tools because he was a motion guy. So I gave the tools of digital, like, you know, he credits me, he shows that what the tools were to the creative world so that we can have better careers. But the real agenda was actually this, was let's be founders. It wasn't so that we can get better jobs. Fuck the jobs, they're going to go away. They're already going away. Now we need to start our own things. So now the work is confidence, self-esteem, authenticity. Now it's the coaching that I'm getting from an investor to really be able to get it. It's like, because it's always a loop back. It's always back to the future. You go to the future and you come back and you say what you saw so that it writes the future. That's why futurists and writers and authors do what they do, because they are seeing what's coming and what they want to write, and they put it out into the zeitgeist. Media is ultimately a future writing machine. And you can write the narrative of division, of conflict, of anxiety, which is what the news does. And they only do that because that's what makes money. People are love to sit there and go like, oh my God, the world's ending. But the truth is that if you look below the surface, Threads is a good place. The world is not ending. We're rebuilding the world, right? And that's the goal and the purpose of us as designers being fully empowered, is so that we can rebuild the world from the business model, from the from the inside, from who we are out.
Right.
So when you go to this system right now, we have a breathwork workshop in partnership with Inner Design, because your internal state determines your external state. What I said earlier to True, which I saw in Threads and you saw it too, a Black woman saying that generational wealth is really a byproduct of children being able to emotionally regulate, right? That's the parents teaching them that.
Yes.
And now here we are in our middle age, afraid to be our full Leo self, or afraid to like just be public with our shit, or me like making everything into a mess because I'm so fearful of asking for what I need, or being like real with my little boy, right? Because I didn't have that as a child, right? So the healing is the foundation. It's one of my first Instagram posts in this thread. The foundation for designers is healing. Period.
Okay.
So that's it.
So how does human design, I love that, I'm complete. How does human design relate to all of this?
Level one is self-knowledge. So if I know myself really well, I won't judge or label based on the system. So like if I go by what a psychiatrist told me at 24, I'm fucking like ADHD, bipolar, I'm fucking a crazy bitch, according to that, right? But if I actually look at my human design, being a manifesting generator, having these gates, my cross, which whatever that means, I don't judge any of the woo, by the way. I am so not judgy. I'm like, this sounds interesting. I'm going to check it out. What does it mean? But for the Son of a Seventh-day Adventist pastor, oh my God, like there's so much judgment to the woo, and yoga is the portal to Satan, just to be clear.
Oh,
Quote
wow.
me on that. I've read that in places. Start chanting, and you're going to hell. But the point is to be focused and clear that my cross is the cross of contagion, which is I'm here to spread the message. So instead of me judging myself for not being Christo, for not being able to produce at the same level, for not being this, I'm like, nah, I'm just here to be loud and obnoxious and spread whoever listens. Invite me on your podcast. I'm going to tell you the truth. Here's what's happening. That's it. Be comfortable with who you are. So that's the foundation of it. And to listen to Christo in my head and say, to promote my core coaching program, which helps you come out, it's the first thing we do. We do your human design, we do your Fido, and we go like, oh, look, this is who you are. Be loud, be proud, and don't fucking worry about it.
Oh, I love it.
That's it. That's the reason I'm using human design. I don't want to predict anything. I don't want to manipulate anything. I just want you to be happy and comfortable with who you are.
So if you're not familiar with human design, we'll make sure that we include a link with this podcast so you can check it out. It's a complex system using lots of different variables to kind of get a sense of who you are, your purpose, your mission, your internal, your external. It requires a lot of deep study. I'd also love for you to let people know where they can find your classes while we're here.
Yeah, thesystem.co, and the system doesn't have an E. And yeah, that's a question that I'm not answering right this moment. Why doesn't the system have an E, or the future have an E, or one of those things? Yeah, what's going on there?
What's wrong with the E? Interesting.
Just falls off of everything.
Okay, so you've talked about how our systems are no longer serving us right now. What do you think is next? We were kind of touching on that a minute ago with the crisis that's happening in design, and a lot of people are shifting careers. A lot of people are out of work. Stability, there's not that stability there once was in creative careers. Everything is changing. So if these systems are not serving us and falling, what's next?
So let's just get this super straight. We are the system. There are no systems. Like we look at school, government, and all these things, institutions that made the 20th century possible, and we're like, oh, nah, fuck that. Chris used to get really pissed because I would say, you're so 20th century. And he got really annoyed. But he's totally, Chris, I know you'll watch this. You're totally 21st century now. So you made it. Congrats. I'm such an asshole. It's so true. But the point is that we trust those systems, right? But we realize that we together, community, this is it right here. This is the system, right? And the security part, are we really going to starve to death people? Come on. In America, at the end of peak capitalism, you have friends, make connections, be close to each other, sleep on your ex-wife's couch when you're in LA, my biggest fear was becoming a dirty burner. But Burning Man, and what it teaches is that the community component is really important. There's the aesthetics of it, there's falling into it, but that's a different thing. The real good things from it are that we can actually, does everybody need a car? Does everybody need a 4-bedroom house in Orange County with a huge yard? No. Collectivism and living in community is where we come from. We bought into this whole thing because advertising agencies in New York, fueled by drunk Irishmen, would be selling you like houses in a tract home to support a business model that some assholes in a boardroom just came up with. Hey, what if we give credit to poor people so that they can buy homes? It's all the business model that drives us insane, right? So the humanity, and we as Americans right now, but now as global citizens, because everyone is actually in the game now. Like we can look at it in my trip through Latin America for the last 2 years. I'm like seeing Latin America become the US, and I'm like,
interesting.
Please, let's not do this. Designers, you're responsible. And this is this is the conspiracy. Now you know financial models.
Mm.
Now you know, or now you know how to create brands. Now you know the business of design. But now let's switch it, and now let's become founders, and let's start companies that are sustainable. Let's start companies that are regenerative. Let's actually own the production and the means to create because the world is simply a combination of food, shelter, the basic stuff in Maslow. It's the majority of the businesses, right? Transportation, do we really need cars? Maybe not. We need transportation. There's all these things that can be rethought, but the only way to rethink it is if the new generation of entrepreneurs creating the world are on board with the agenda, right? And the agenda is not just the survival of humankind. Fine, that's great agenda. It's actually the survival of our individual souls, of us being in harmony with each other and with nature and with life. It's a better life, right? But what do you work hard for here in America? You commute for 5 hours so you can have a great life. But then you lose your great life because you've been working your whole life. So work is broken. That's the I don't know what question I was answering, but that's kind of somewhere in there.
Okay. So we were talking about our systems being broken. Our creative industry, as we've been talking about, is really struggling right now. And the idea of ownership, the idea of reality are specifically being questioned. I would love to hear you talk about the rapid pace that things are evolving, the different types of focus and reality and ownership as areas that are going to transform into something new. What's your feeling on that?
I love the fact that you're doing AI and all the people that are doing AI. This AI background is my friend Rubina, with whom I'm producing breath work. And so there's two answers to that. One, get your shit together with meditation and breath work. And listen, I'm a Taurus. It's super functional. It's just so that I can survive unmedicated the journey. I'm doing it to survive and to be in tune. And of course, with my coach working on my inner child, like you got to be like, it's like the Jamaican bobsled team, the bobsled has to be very, very like, how do you call it? Aerodynamic.
Right.
And we have so many barnacles and belief systems and like, I call barnacles like limiting beliefs, right? You have a traumatic event, which creates a limiting belief. Somebody rejected me in high school, so now I think I'm not worthy of love. Somebody was an asshole to me at a job and screamed at me. That means that there's something wrong with me. No, they were just assholes. Just to be clear, there was nothing wrong with you. But the barnacle is there's something wrong with me. I'm too loud. I'm too obnoxious. I'm a woman in Sweden. I should actually be very quiet and be in the back. Those are all the barnacles that we need to take off us. And, the way that I've been doing it in my own practice has been by facing it full frontal, healing in community, which if you look at the thing I wrote in LinkedIn about this, about answering these questions, I'm a user in the journey. And one of the needs is healing in community. So I'm basically, as I heal, I'm sharing it, right? But also the friction within the community is part of the healing, right? So like these stories that are happening and occurring, the fights, the breakdowns. I just had a breakdown in my own community the other night because I might have had a little bit too much wine. So I need to check my drinking. But that breakdown is actually the resolution of the breakdown is the healing, right? For myself and for that other person. Right. And I learned that at Burning Man. I learned it like having these like big like breakups and breakdowns on the middle of the playa because it was hot and it was difficult to deal with the shit. But then like talking it out and the container of unconditional love and of forgiveness and like, look, we're human. So compassion, all those things. But the reason why I'm sharing all of this was, go back to your question.
So my question is about the idea of reality ownership is shifting right now. And a lot of the creative community is kind of in this weird space, and technology is moving super fast. So my question was, how are you?
Breath work. Yeah, how am I dealing with it? So we need to take care of ourselves first, like of our physical and like emotional needs, because as creatives, our job depends on our creativity. But then, like I said at the beginning, or like you said at the beginning, we get into these jobs and it loses meaning, and then we go into a crisis. What made us happy wasn't like the paycheck for moving pixels around. What made us happy was that we're doing creative shit for a living. That's really awesome. So now you need to now I need to commit to doing real creative stuff for a living without the employer.
Right.
So that's a challenge, because now there's the fear of like, so we're all becoming creators, and it doesn't matter what you sell or that transaction. What matters is that you provide value, and that you provide like, some sort of like, let's put it this way. Futurist Alvin Toffler talks about in his book, Future Shock, written in the 70s. There have been multiple versions of it after that. In the future, personal development and transformation was going to be the main business.
Right.
And then Daniel Pink talks about it in A Whole New Mind, that affluence, automation, Asia is going to make creativity of bigger value. These guys are futurists. They're writing what's happening because they're seeing the signals, right?
Right.
So then America, during its peak capitalism, suddenly we're all creatives. There's this huge boom in design because companies want to extract value, but then they need to extract the value. So they dump employees, and then now we're all on the street going like, oh shit, I'm not worthy. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
So now because of that, but we're not starving. Like, we still have some savings. There are people who are really struggling. Community is the number one answer. Community is the number one answer. Sharing, new business models, donation. Get your Patreon going. Get your Instagram going. Tell your real story. Come out. Don't like be in this inauthentic space of like, oh, I'm struggling in silence. No, say that what you need. Like, don't be like me, like a little kid. Like, I'm gonna go, I don't know what I need. That has marked my career so much, where I just don't say what I need, as the little boy that, got abandoned by his mother because she died, and his father, I don't know where the fuck he went. But that then I don't advocate for myself. So I become this obnoxious, like, the sky is falling person. And I come across that way, but that's just really the little boy trying to get attention to survive, right? So we're all that little boy and that little girl in creative now, and it's all fucking going to shit. But there's a group of people, and they're gathered right here, right now, who are simply, somewhat calmly, just sharing their stories and doing podcasts and doing these things. And we need to Christo that shit and monetize it here and there. We might judge Chris for being like that. The minute that you judge Chris for like trying to figure out the business model, trying to figure out every angle, the minute we judge that, you're welcome. That judgment is exactly what you need, right? That is what you need, right? Like, monetize that's the business model. Get $15 from every person around you, and now you have a new job. Except you have to be obnoxious on stage, and you're an introvert. That's a catch-22. So I'm here to help you be obnoxious so that you can make a living in the future as a creator. Because there's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to do. We don't want industrial production. We don't want to produce more shit. Like, if we're going to survive as a species, we all need to get on these big multiple Zooms and on TikTok, and we all need to be cam girls, basically. For Christ. Cam girls for Christ. That's going to be my new tagline.
My God. Oh, no. Okay.
Horrible. That's horrible.
Okay. So, I have many, many thoughts going on. Let me try and distill this down. So my first thought is asking for what you need. That is a really difficult thing, at least for me personally, and I'm going to guess for other people listening to this. And being vulnerable, being open, and being seen have also been areas of struggle with myself and people around me. What advice would you give people who struggle in those areas as a first step that they could take to learn to be more comfortable with being seen and being vulnerable and asking for what they need?
Yeah, this goes really well into the role of women and people of color and queer people at work and in
Hmm.
general. Like
Hmm.
we feel like the sense of, it's not safe to kind of ask
Yes.
for what we want or for what we need.
Yes.
And so for me, like since I'm a designer and I do all the things in the context of my core co-creators, like just publishing that today on LinkedIn, I
Hmm.
look at what I actually said I need, which was like media production, which is a very tactical thing,
Hmm.
healing and community, right? Healing and
Hmm.
community, and then love and affection. Oh my
Mm.
God, I put three things: media, healing, and love and affection. It's very me. It's very the little boy.
Ooh.
And then, but publishing it, that's the first time I actually published that. So it's
Oh.
been in hiding for like, since I did it in 2019.
Wow.
Then now in the my core coaching, at the end of putting together the exercises, you have to present it
Hmm.
to your
Hmm.
spouse, your partner, your friends, your
Mm.
business partners, the close people around you. And
Hmm.
you are a profile in there and you're saying, this is what I need. Now,
Mm.
because it's already in writing and you did it in a private setting, it's okay. But I think that everyone should do a user profile of themselves, just
Okay.
like we do it for user experience, and
Hmm.
publish it and put what they really
Interesting.
need. I need help with my financial modeling. I need help doing budgeting. I need help.
Mm.
My special gifts are my superpower is this, right?
Hmm.
Your superpower as an Aquarius is going to be having these deep philosophical, introspective, retrospective conversations because that's
Hmm.
your love language. Your love
Hmm.
language is words, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
This is your money. And here
True.
you are, and we're doing it. So
Yeah.
you asking for what you need from the universe without having to like do it like with your words can be
Mhm.
as simple as you have a profile of yourself that actually says it, and you're like, look, it's actually saying the truth of what I need, and it's public. But then you put it out to the internet, and the minute I got to that point where through my coach, like I just started writing the truth in my
Yeah.
emails, people just
Yeah.
started responding to me like, "Oh my God, Jose, it's been a long time. How are you doing, brother?"
Wow.
Versus masking. So like people of color, all people, but like specifically creative people, specifically people of color,
Right.
you looking good. You want to look good. You
Yeah.
don't want to show that you're struggling. You don't want to say that you need something.
Right.
Uh, but have you seen people who ask for the shit they need? They get it.
That's true. That's a
Yeah.
really good point.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been in the conference rooms with, like, bro, just fucking ask for what you want. And then it comes across as like really aggressive and like,
Mm.
like, no, if you don't ask, you don't get it. So that's really that threshold of comfort that we need to get across. And it is about worthiness, right? But
Yes.
a lot of it is just conditioning. We've been conditioned as women. We've been conditioned as people of color. We've been not to ask, like
Hmm.
that it's bad, right?
Hmm.
But guess who programmed us with that shit?
Yes. It's
The
true.
P word, the P
Yeah.
word. I'm not going to say it out loud because I don't want this to get shut down, but the P
Oh,
word.
oh, it's not going to shut us down.
I know, I'm
Yeah,
kidding.
I agree with you. I agree. Some aspects of the patriarchy are a little difficult, and I'm going to be really clear here. I do not mean men when I say patriarchy. I'm being very specific about a system of thought and domination that has kind of been part of our society for a long time, benefits just a couple, and a lot of people do not benefit from this system. So I must leave it there. Okay. So I have a couple more questions for you. And then I see some questions here in the chat, and I'm going to open it up. If you have questions while I'm going through these next two inquiries for Jose, please drop them in the chat. So, Jose, what are you working on right now? What is your thing that you are just about to put out into the world?
That's such a good question. I even took notes, and since you sent me
Oh,
the questions ahead of time,
mm-hmm.
um, the my core coaching program is really me putting out my journey as a program. And I struggled a lot with figuring out like, what do I do? Do I do a new version of core? Do I do core for AI. There's all these
Mm.
conversations within my inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like tuning into it and I'm like, I want to tell my journey. And then the ability to do that in a program, right, with people that are trying to build their persona, their superpowers, their and come out, right, and like be powerful as creators.
Mm-hmm.
What better way to do that than like to actually share my journey in the context of coaching, so personalizing the modules for them. And there's 3 modules, and I have them tattooed. The first one is really
wow.
defining your purpose, defining
Uh-huh.
your purpose, defining yourself. The second one is really beginning to align that definition with the world and the people around you, right? And then the third is actually doing it. So the third module, which will be in a few months, it's really the collective group of things that make up the system. Because at the beginning, it's just the individual, just you.
Right.
Starting with human design and the Fido to really understand yourself. Then the second part being like, okay, who am I, right? What is my essence? What are my superpowers? That's you telling your story. How often do we do our hero's journey? We don't sit there and write our whole story unless you're invited on a podcast and you're forced to tell it. But everybody should do their story because they're going to be on a podcast soon, because everything is a podcast. Life is a podcast.
True.
That's what's happening now, right?
Right.
So you have to tell your story and be comfortable telling it over and over and over again. And then in the second module of it, in the alignment, is actually coming out. So like one of the people, amazing, very, very powerful people, creatives, who is in the program, wants to be able to go to parties in his community, with nonprofits and on yachts and all these things, and say more than like, oh, I want to sell website, do you need a website? Like, that's not a great conversation. So what I realized from my sessions with them, is that what I've been doing for these last 9 years is the success. I was basically taking my relationship with Chris, the ability to go now and travel, go now and do projects like Consensus, go now do ayahuasca with billionaires and all these people. I was understanding and learning what it takes on the other side, right? And this person that is in the coaching program wants that. He's like, I want to be more like you.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, that's right. Like when I was 29, 39, like I was just like, okay, I make websites, like I'm good at it, but I don't have any other stories other than like I make websites.
Right.
So really the beyond the tactical, it comes the personal and the narrative and the ability to connect. It's the dude with the white beard, the most interesting man in the world for Dos Equis. Like to become that guy, you actually have to do those journeys. Or you can really get to know yourself and know that you're already that guy. You just have to know how to tell your story. So that's really what I'm really ultimately doing. And I have been doing it now for 10 years. Every single, my apartment, my loft in Brooklyn had a stage. The Burning Man camp had a stage, and I would bring people on stage and we would do comedy. We would do all the things. It's basically like the whole, like my whole thing. And I was like, oh, that's weird or crazy. Why do I keep on doing that? And it's because I was at 3 on stage doing Babes in Toyland, at 7 preaching at the church as a 7-year-old. Like, so that's always been my gift. So I can get on stage and not be afraid. Why not give that gift to other people? And that's really about developing the character called you, but it's really you, right? So that's what I'm excited about. It's just bringing that back into the world. And then the other thing that community building is a lot of work. And the last thing I'll say is that one thing I need is everyone in the blast radius of my voice to really come out and start creating content and invite me on your content. I'll be your first guest. I'll be your, whatever it is. Like if you're creative and it's really not about the business model. It's really that we need to all collectively spread the message that level 2 of the video game is that we become founders and we create better companies for the world, and that we thrive not as service providers, not as like, let me lend my talent to like this corporation or this startup or even this nonprofit, but like we can and we will create a new future because that's who we are, right?
Mhm.
I don't care if you're an actor, a musician, a creative, or like what does everybody make shit for in the industrial paradigm that is our world? So that they can afford to have a really good life. And the good life is good music, good food. All the humanities are really the good life. But
Mhm.
we basically put that aside to focus on making money so that we can have those things.
Yeah.
But what if we make those things our day to day, right? What if we live in this new world where we're sharing resources, where joy and happiness is the norm, where your neighbor and you are like playing the guitar in the backyard and you don't have this fear of like, and this division that's been created. I go to South Carolina to visit my brother in full on Trump country and shoot guns with him, right? And he voted for Trump, but he's my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that he lives in a fundamentalist Christian bubble and it's like we're brothers, right? And then here's his weird California queer brother, like his whose kids love and so all these divisions that have been created of black, white, gay, straight, Republican, Democrat, Swedish, whatever, are all artificial. And it's all because the algorithms and media has done it. And we know this because we feel it. We just feel it. And it's time and it's our jobs to really begin taking ownership of switching that and driving the narrative towards love, towards peace, towards unity. Because again, we are the system.
Yes.
We have power. Look at the power that we have right here, right now, of coming together to broadcast. That's the big aha secret. And that requires us to come out, to be powerful, to feel it, to like just let go, to be uncorked. So my invitation is get the fuck uncorked and start doing it, Milka, start doing it, Isabel, start doing it, Rob, Brian, all of us. Figure out what your philosophy is, what your religion, your shit, all the pain you're going to is your kit. Everyone, the platform is like, put out your shit. And your shit might be like, oh, I want to do breath work. Or your shit might be, let's do a meditation course or whatever it is. Let's help each other and do it. And guess what? You have $1,000 and 10 of them give you $100. Great. That pays for whatever it is. And that's where we're going. Welcome to Burning Man, motherfuckers, because that's what happens there. That's the point. The world is becoming a festival.
Ooh, I love it. Okay, that is a perfect place for us to stop and move into Q&A. I saw earlier Anna Lee asked, she wants to know your human design and my human design.
Mine and whose? Anna Lee's?
No, your host here.
Oh, do you have it? I don't have yours. I have mine open, actually.
Start with you.
I'm a manifesting generator. And I'll just open it. I don't know if I can share my screen, but human design. I'm a manifesting generator and I'm a 1-3, which means that I'm an investigative martyr, which martyr is overstatement, but it means that I like to explore and then I only learn from doing it. So it looks like I'm bumping my head and like really being in a lot of pain. But if I don't do it, I can't like learn it. So one of the reasons why for me, like even all the stuff that I teach, I have to really like do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
So doing core on myself over and over and over and over again. And I'm like, oh, now I can do it. Right. And I've had coaches and therapists and all these things. My judgment is always like, well, why should I be a coach? Like, I don't know. I'm not certified to do a coach. And then I use collage. Like I use everything, human design, astrology, the Fido, tarot cards, whatever tools I use them. But then I realize just prioritize and narrow them and just put it out as an experiment. That's why when I say this is an experiment, it's giving myself permission to do the stuff without, So the two big things about my human design, not unlike Anna Lee, probably, because I've seen hers. I might have it here. is that my head centers are undefined, right? So I'm not just certain. I'm just like, okay, or not. I don't know. So I live in this uncertainty. And then I listen to all the people around me, and that makes me feel like I'm garbled, right? Like I'm going in all these different directions. So what I've begun to learn is just listen to understand their point of view, but it's their point of view. It's not mine. Don't take ownership of what anybody says to me. Just do what I want to do. That's the thing that, and then I'm defined in my, I call it my core, but it's really your base, right? Your the butt. What's that chakra called?
The root
Number
chakra?
one. The root, thank you. My root is very defined. My root is very defined, and my willpower, the whole part about making money is not. So I never really like, I always do things not out of the money, even though it might come across, because I overcompensate with it being about like, okay, sustainability. I'm also a Taurus. So I'm using the human design, but also my understanding of my astrology and my placements. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
My Venus is in Gemini, which means that my love language is language. So I talk a lot and I connect, and I can go deep on an airplane. I can go deep anywhere. So knowing that makes me like, oh, okay, that's my jam. I'm looking here through all my human design, and all of it is like the recognition that money isn't everything is one of my channels, Gate 14. The recognition that wealth has its own problems. The lust for lucre tempered by higher principles. The key to manifesting power is higher principles. Or it's your essence, it's your values. The delusion that if you can throw money at problems, energy alone can never be the key. That's my Mercury in Pisces. So knowing that, I'm like, oh, that's what I've been looking for. I've been looking because I wanted success, but then I got it. And then I had the ability to try it out. And everybody else who got success, they're all unhappy and like, depressed and trying to figure it out with, plant medicines and all this stuff. Oh, at the other side of success is the reality that was really never what you were looking for. You just wanted your little boy, your little girl to be happy. Yeah. And you could have done that by just doing that work. Right. So my people and who I'm ministering to now are powerful creatives who have succeeded in their creative endeavors and need help going to that place. And that's actually me too. Core has been extremely successful. The Futur really succeeded. At the other side of that success is the loneliness of knowing that what I was looking for was simply being able to play, being able to have a better relationship with Christo. It was just the kids that want to play, right? That is the thing that we're looking for, is not the success or the money. So just do community, do connection, do authenticity now. That will drive success. And no matter how much money you make or how little money you make, you'll be happy.
Right. Oh,
that's all from my human design.
I love it. I love it. Okay. And Annalie, for you, I'm going to keep this super brief because I don't want the focus to be on me too much. I'm a generator. I'm a 5/1. That means I'm an investigator, and I'm also a heretic, which means that a lot of people project onto me, and I have a mission of knowing myself really deeply. It's a difficult path with a cross of an alpha, which means I'm supposed to be a leader, but I am not stepping into a leadership role. So there's all kinds of stuff, but check out your own personal human design if you haven't done it. It's super fascinating. And like I said, we'll make sure we include a link. Thank you, Jose. He's got rockets on his screen. We'll make sure we include a link at the bottom of the podcast once this goes live, so you can do your own human design. It's been really helpful. Okay.
And on the system, we have a whole channel dedicated to human design. People will post it. And by the time this podcast is out, there'll be a link for myself and Rubina to do your human design just on its own. On its own.
While we're here, can you share a little bit about Rubina for everybody?
Yeah, Rubina is the navigator of sorts of the system space station. I met Rubina at an art center event about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and we started talking about human design and astrology. And she's a Gemini, and I'm a Gemini in Venus, so we're like, oh, okay. I put a pin on that, and I went back to Mexico. And then about 2 months, 3 months ago, I came back to LA to continue my study into human design and to develop programming with her. So the first program that we're developing is a breathwork course. The reason for that is because breathwork, it's powerful no matter which way. But for me specifically, the connection between the emotions and the body completely unlocks, which could be disturbing. It could be like, I go into fear or I go into abandonment. I can actually feel the past, but by letting it out and letting it through, like at the other side, all the barnacles get removed. Like, letting go of limiting beliefs, letting go of like whatever the first step is getting rid of the trauma that caused limiting beliefs that I'm not enough.
Right.
And that all happens through something like breath work without psychedelics or without, too much wine, right? Because that's what we're doing when we're taking like, any substances, we're trying to like get rid of the pain, right?
Yeah.
To be our true self. But what if you could do it with breath work, right? Whoa. And if you look at it from a workplace standpoint, mindfulness and breath work and all those things are already much more accepted. So if you go to thesystem.co/inner design or just the main page, you're going to see me, Rubina and I really emphasizing that, because I want for every single person here, every single person listening to this podcast to have that experience of feeling their true self simply from the practices that can get you there, that don't require, a huge investment. You don't have to take 6 years and travel the world and go to India. I'm here to share with you the things that I've discovered and I learned. And that's right. The first time I did breathwork was in India. And after doing it, I was just like, holy poo. Like, how can I share this with more people? And then when I met Rubina, I'm like, okay, here we are. And that was it. So I'm sharing her gifts because those are the things that I've been doing for myself. And I want to share for everyone else in the community, for you, for Anna Lee, for every single person, spend 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2 hours each day doing the practices, learning them, practicing together. You know how good that feels to hang out with the people you love and like practice transformative kind of stuff? It's amazing. And share and go into Zoom rooms. And we did an experiment recently where we did a session and we had to draw before and then draw after to see the difference between what it felt like before breath work and afterwards. And afterwards, you were just like, shh.
Wow.
Like you're channeling the Holy Spirit, basically.
Wow.
It's bringing the house down. Jesus for sure was a yogi. Like, that's what I try to tell my Christian family in the South, or like, just like, you know what? You guys are all like, Jesus was a yogi. He was teaching that stuff at weddings, or I don't know, giving them mushrooms. I don't know what he was doing at weddings, but he was doing it. Anyway, I'm complete.
I love that. Love it. Oh my God. Okay. So if anybody else has any questions, if you would like to speak to Jose at this point directly, you're welcome to turn your camera on. Or if you're shy, you can leave it in the chat. We have about 10 minutes left. So now is your chance. Just wait just a second. And I'm going to make sure I didn't miss any questions. Let's see. Oh, I do have one. So our dear friend Davron has joined us. Thank you so much for showing up. He says this is so important, pushing through to connect with people, even though they have different ideas. Understanding is so important.
Beautiful. Super true. I've struggled with that. I've been so afraid to come out to my community and because my family is so Christian, and like I felt shame. I felt deep shame with the fact that I've gone in this route, and this whole process of coming out as non-denominational woo-woo has been a difficult one for me. More difficult than as anything else, believe it or not.
Why was it more difficult?
Oh, because you're going to burn in hell if you like believe in astrology and do tarot and all that kind of stuff.
All right. Okay. That makes perfect sense. I have a question here from Milka. Jose, where are you residing now?
I am in LA for the next probably couple of months.
Mhm.
But I haven't made a choice. There's a talk about Mexico City. That's what I'm feeling intuitively. I've been in Mexico for a couple of years. So I've been nomad for a bit. I love Mexico, but I'm in LA. I'm in LA for the short term. So catch me while you can.
All right. Well, that's it for all the questions I have. I want to thank everybody for joining today and being so flexible with the link. You can reach out to Jose. He is on Instagram and Threads quite a bit. And Annalise says she heard something about Stockholm.
Oh, don't tempt me, girl. Don't make me show up to Stockholm.
Oh my God. So if people want to find you on Instagram or on Threads, how can they find you, Jose?
It's at Jose Caballer, my last name, California Baller, Caballer.
Thank you.
Jose Caballer.
Thank you, everybody, so much. This call is being recorded, so we'll have this out soon. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Jose. It's been an honor.
Thank you.